Hey, Rae.
Gina,
It's so good to see you.
I love you. I've missed you
Yeah,
so much.
it's been a long time. I feel
I
like
know.
I see your face.
It's so lame.
Welcome to PMM Perspectives.
Yeah.
So good to have you. Okay, so for everybody that's watching, normally we would talk about the cookbook. That's why we started this. And, the goal is to evolve beyond that at a certain point and talk to people about different PMM experience. But Rae, given your new experience with River and the fundraising and just moving from, being the lead at a product marketing agency to then starting another business and everything that has actually gone into that, I really want to talk about that today.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so why don't we start with the initial transition and just, like what it was like, how it happened. I feel like how it happened is so fun. And
Yeah.
and then we could move into fundraising and really any tips that you have for people who might want to do their own thing.
Amazing. Well, I don't know if everyone knows, but I'm one of the co-founders of Olivine.
I
Um,
already knew, but
okay.
yes.
Maybe everyone knows, or I know you know, obviously, but yeah. So I started my career in finance. Hated it. Oh my God, I hated it. I was a fish trying to climb a tree. And was living in Boston. Ended up reading The 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and my husband and I decided to move to San Francisco sight unseen to break into whatever this thing called Silicon Valley was.
Wow.
Got a job at a tech startup in like a finance operations role. Liked it a lot better.
Mm.
I really did. Was there for 3 years. Helped with a few rounds of fundraising, but ultimately. Ashley Wilson, the original co-founder of Olivine, she's like, "You are a marketer. You are not a finance person." And she told me about this job at Intercom, which I applied for, and I got the job as a product marketer. And that is how I broke into product marketing initially.
I love it.
And launched a couple of products for Intercom. Was with them for 3 years. Is best in-house experience of my life. Absolutely loved it there. After 7 years in San Francisco, decided to move to New York to be closer to family. And while I was looking for a job, I was like, oh, I'll just freelance. But ended up making $192,000 in my first year of freelancing, which was like money to me.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
yeah,
so
it was
because even back then, which wasn't even that long ago, but that was a lot of
2015.
yeah,
No, 2018.
a lot
Yeah.
of money. Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering like all the, dumbass mistakes I made at the beginning, like undercharging and like, I mean, that included like, total rookie mistakes. So I was just like, holy crap. Ended up having like way too much inbound that I like couldn't even deal with. And Ashley, who had been the head of marketing at Sauce, she had been freelancing. She had started this agency called Olivine. She had worked with like another designer, writer, and a filmmaker. And I was like, hey, what do you think about taking on this big project with me? I can't handle it by myself. We could test run it. It went super well. We both enjoyed having like a partner in crime. The work was better and easier and faster. So we merged and started to grow Olivine. So we
Amazing.
did that for 6 years until last year.
Yeah. And I mean, in the last, because I joined 4 years ago, around 4 years ago, and it was me, you, Ashley. This is when you guys were still leading projects, which is crazy. Ariel and Madalena.
Madalena. Yeah.
And Anna, who has since started her own thing, which is awesome.
Yeah. Anna Coquel. Yeah.
So, I mean, and now things have grown tremendously. So it's really interesting to just see how things change over time, for sure.
Yes. So scaling Olivine is probably like a whole other
Yeah,
podcast.
totally.
But then how I ended up starting River was completely by accident. I keep just like stumbling into
I love it.
to these glass chewing experiences. During the pandemic, this podcast called the All In podcast came out. It's pretty polarizing. Not everyone loves it. I might be the only woman who listens to it. I don't know. There's some women, but it's not very common. So like kind of four tech tycoons is Jason Calacanis, David Sachs, David Freeberg, and Chamath Palihapitiya. All of whom were almost all of them were already on my radar. Obviously I knew Jason Calacanis because he had This Week in Startups. And I knew David Sachs because some of my friends had worked at Yammer. And then I knew Chamath Palihapitiya because his fund, Social Capital, was an investor in Intercom. So I kind of like already knew about them. So I was an early listener. They had a summit in Miami, which I went to, and I noticed that it was mostly men. So I decided to host a women's brunch to help the ladies just kind of break the ice and get to know someone at the summit. And my old mentor, Mark DeVisser, suggested that I invite Jason to the brunch. And I was like, he's like,
Mhm.
he's so busy. And he's like, you never know. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, like 12 smart, beautiful women at brunch. Yeah, you could stop by. Um, I didn't tell anyone that I invited Jason because I just wanted to be a surprise. And I was like, that way you won't let anyone down. I wanted to make it easy for him to not say no. I knew
Mhm.
he wouldn't say yes, but I didn't want him to just like turn it off and say no. Anyway, he came to brunch and everyone was totally shocked that he joined, and he stayed, and I got to know him over the course of a couple hours, and he bought brunch, which was very generous. So at the summit, I was known as Brunch Girl,
Mm.
which, is fine, but I wasn't like excited. I wasn't like excited about being Brunch Girl. I'm like, oh, but I'm so much more.
Yeah.
Anyway, I met Melissa Varelli at this brunch, and she is incredible. First of all, she's like a killer poker player, and I don't know if she still does, but she's doing free speech lawyer at Meta, like,
Wow.
total badass.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I don't know, it was like 6 months after the summit, and she's like, Rae, where are you in the world? I'm hosting an episode 100 listening party for All In, and I want you to come to my listening party.
Mm.
And I was like, that sounds great, but I just moved to Miami and I'm trying to meet Miami people, so maybe I'll do the same. I made a sign up form. I asked Jason if they were going to live stream the summit, the episode, and he said no, but you should make a sign up form. So I did. It totally went viral, and we hosted meetups in 24 cities with like 1,000 people, and it was super low tech. It was like an Airtable with like a lot of data problems, a Google Calendar, and a BCC email list,
Mm.
which was incredibly busy. And so you might remember Olivine. I was like, you guys, like, I need, like, what did I do? I didn't know what, I like.
What was it like for you when it went viral? Like,
Well,
because totally
completely,
expected it, right? Like, you're like,
no.
I'm doing this thing in Miami. I'm gonna, casual. I'll invite a few
Yeah.
people.
And in the sign up
One.
form was like, okay, San Francisco, Melissa, Miami, me. And then I had a bunch of friends in Austin because I had just been to Austin for 6 weeks. So I was like, okay, maybe Austin. Like, cool. That'll be it. Like 3 meetups. We can handle that. Yeah, wasn't expecting it to go viral. And then like, there was a lot of pressure because people like thought that I was getting paid to do it. And so they just like had all these expectations. They're like, well, why isn't this working? I'm like, I don't know. What's going on?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I don't really know what's going to come from this, but it just seems kind of magical. So I'll just like try to ride the wave. And like, I was like, oh, you know what'll happen is I'm getting all these emails and really juicy people. Like I looked them up on Apollo and I was like, oh, wow. Like, oh, wow. Like a
Yeah.
lot of investors, real estate people, people from all over the world. I was like, okay, juicy network building. And now when I go to Zurich, I can meet someone for coffee. Like that was like my big unexpected outcome. I started a Slack group. Everyone kind of joined there. There's like some magic happening. There's a lot of hiccups. Those are boring, but yeah, just like a lot of data issues that I didn't foresee. But 6 months later, everyone was like, "We're doing it again, right?" And I was like, "No, that was so much work. Are you crazy? Like, why? Like, why would I want to do that again? I already know my friend. Now I already have friends in Miami. Like, I don't need to do it." But then like 30 people asked, like DM'd me or like tracked me down or texted me. I was like, okay, yeah. Hold on, I'll figure it out. So Genesis Dayrit helped me like get a Luma account and hook into the API and pipe that data to Airtable. And I was like, yeah, cool. We're good. Like solved it. Ended up hosting meetups in 50 cities around the world. And
Wow.
literally the same amount of work as it was the Google Calendar and the BCC, but just because the way Luma's set up is meant to be like for one host.
Right. Right.
I could, if I wanted to create events in 50 cities, I had to personally manually create events in 50 cities. There was no batch creation. If people wanted to host, once first of all, there was a lot of confusion about what they were hosting. I'd be like, do you want to host? I'd be like, yeah. I'm like, add them to the event. They'd be like, no, I just meant sometime. I'm like, no, I don't need you sometime. I need you on this day.
Right.
So there was that problem. And then Jason kept promoting it and like retweeting it. So it kept going viral, but he wanted me to vet the host. And I was like, well, how the hell am I supposed to vet the host?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like having them apply through this other Airtable and then trying to, add them to Luma. And then the other problem was once they take over edit access in Luma, they have that is their event. They own it. So they download the emails, add them, start spamming those people. They would delete my little blurb about all in meetups. And like, there was just like no, if I wanted to check in, like, okay, is this host engaged? Are they on it? I had to just click. I had 50 tabs open and I just had to click every event, be like, yep, it's good. Track it offline on a spreadsheet. And I was like, oh my God, so much work. Never doing this again. And then Raechel was like, hey, I want to hire you to do this. Well, first of all, he's like, how are you doing this? And I was like, bodies, man. Like, just pulled 6 people from Olivine. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but you got to help me get this done. So thanks to Olivine, everybody, for helping get that done. So he wanted to hire me to do it the same for This Week in Startups. So I gave him a quote. He's like, that's too much money. And I was like, actually, this was the friend rate because I really want to work with you. It's just a lot of work. And he's like, well, how about instead of hiring you, I invest in you and you build a SaaS.
And then, so he says that. And what's your first response? Were you like immediately a yes? Or were you like, what is this?
I mean, I work in tech. A lot of my friends are software engineers, a lot of them. And my husband is a data scientist. And I, Genesis had some code skills on. I was already kind of being like, okay, there's a clear gap in like capability. Like I thought this was solved. So I was thinking about starting something, but I kind of am like I kind of prefer bootstrapping. Like we bootstrapped Olivine, I don't know. I just like wasn't super like my dream was not to be like a venture backed founder, like startup. Right. That was not what I was going. Like my goal is to just like build some wealth for myself and create a nice working environment for other people. So I was thinking of building something, but I wasn't thinking of building something aggressively. Right. I was just like, yeah, we could dabble and see what happens and like maybe build it in Bubble and I don't know. Or maybe it would just be like a Luma wrapper was kind of like what I was thinking I would do. But when when he offered to invest, I was like, first of all, I was tired just thinking about it. But I was like, if I say no, like it's such a rare opportunity. Like I'm going to regret not saying yes and just trying it. So, okay. So yeah, that was the point where I kind of started to, step away from Olivine, let the team lead the company. And try to figure out how to build a venture-backed startup. Okay,
so that started. And when was that? That was last year around
last
what time?
June. Yeah, wow. So last June was our first, May 31st or June 1st was our very first code commit.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, so tell me about the phases that you've been through since last June. Because early it's exciting and it's like you're building this thing and you're backed. And then even, up to the point when was it that you actually like presented all of this year?
Yeah. So our very first, I would say our big first launch was August 8th. And we were going to go to the second All-In Summit in LA and power a bunch of unofficial side events around the summit.
So fun.
Yes. And it would just be like a single kind of event feed for everyone that's going to the summit or people who are in LA but couldn't afford to go to the summit because it's very expensive. You came out to LA and we hosted a women's brunch and an opening creator showcase at a mansion in Beverly Hills. And
it was an amazing time.
And then other things just go for a free run in the morning. It wasn't all bougie stuff, but yeah. So when we launched August 8th, it was a single community event. It was clearly an event now. There's so many bugs with it, but launched that, had 20 events around the summit and everyone had a great time. And then we were like, okay, there's something here. Let's go full time. Raised, I actually don't. Oh, so I raised the first $100,000 from Raechel, went full time in end of September. And then I think it must have been around November or December, I got on Balaji's radar, like the Bitcoin Balaji. radar, Srinivasan, and he invested 50 grand. And so that kind of gave us some really good early signal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Ryan and I are co-founders, and my husband and I are co-founders, and we have a third co-founder who Ashley and I worked with at Sauce Labs, Bernie. He's our CTO. And then we recruited 2 full stack engineers. And then Anna, who was working with me directly at Olivine, who helped me start all the meetups, came over to River as well. And then we joined the Accelerator in September.
I was just gonna say it was September, I think.
Or later.
It was maybe November, actually. It was in the fall. I know it was in the fall.
Yeah, or October.
Yeah, something like that.
October, November, December, like January or something. Yeah, we did the Launch Accelerator, which is a cohort of 7 startups. And it's like a huge pitch train. So every single week they bring in like an audience of investors. It's virtual, and you pitch for 3 minutes, and then you get drilled with questions, and then you have 2 minutes to answer all the questions. Mm-hmm. And it's just like a little, like a weekly game show of pitching every week. Yeah. I have like a lot of weird regrets on just like when we did things. Like I think we went full-time too soon. Then raising money was really hard, and we were just like starving.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Wait, that's like, so because I think, I've had an inside look, which is exciting. But I think, so you go through this accelerator and there's all this momentum. Everything feels really positive. And there's fear because, of course, like when you're on the court, there's something to lose, right? Like that's...
Remember when I called you crying? Because I'm like, why am I doing this? Olivine's beautiful. Yeah. Why would I leave this beautiful thing,
So there's like all this momentum, and for the most part, it's positive. Like you're feeling like, okay, I'm taking the next right action. I'm moving forward, momentum. And then you do the accelerator and you crushed it. I was there for that too. And then maybe the response was not exactly what you were thinking it would be. Like, what was that experience like? And after you pitch and, you're looking to actually raise money in that moment, and you realize following that, oh, I have to take this into my own hands now.
Yeah. So we were the youngest group in the cohort too, which is like, maybe I regret going full time and so soon. Maybe I should have just like done, actually what I really should have probably done is started like a community agency under River and just worked more directly with communities who would be our customers to do like a tech enabled, product enabled service basically, and to bring like revenue into the business, because we just had such early like positive, like crazy positive things that I was like, well, it's like having a royal flush and just not putting enough chips on the table. Like, you don't want to like miss out because you just like couldn't, you just didn't, like, you have a Ferrari, but you didn't put any gas in the tank is kind of like what I was like trying to push myself to do. But then it was also like, okay, now we've dove into a pool head first and there's no water in it. Like, how are we going to pay everyone? So we put that 150 grand towards our engineers and like part-time designers and Anna. And so Ryan, Bernie, and I have not taken a salary in 9 months. It was like extremely stressful.
Yeah,
it's painful. Like we have savings and stuff, but it's like, oh my God, it's the burning through savings to live off, like to pay your bills, and then also all the opportunity costs of how much.
Right.
So like my friend recently,
like building something that and you're not like there's so much uncertainty.
And like one of my dear friends, Maury, and he's done really well in real estate, and he's like, oh, like what about putting your own money? And I'm like, well, if Ryan and I are both able to earn 200 grand a year and we haven't earned 200 grand this year, we both put in 400 grand already. Like how much more are we going to put in,
Right.
So yeah, there's just been like fundraising. Yeah. So after the accelerator, we started like more earnestly fundraising, because we were technically fundraising during the accelerator, but we're just trying to build product because, I don't even think I've said what River does, but it's a community event app basically. And it's not like Luma where you can just host one event. It's actually like a useless piece of crap if you are only trying to host one event. it's only powerful if you send your entire audience and let your whole audience get together, which is like what we did for Tim Ferriss for his 10th anniversary of his podcast. He sent his entire audience to River, and 3 weeks later, 150 events, like simultaneous events happen. So it's very powerful if you have a critical mass, but if you don't, it's just kind of a shitty, it's just like a shitty event app, you know. And then a lot of people think that we're further along than we are because I'm a good marketer and like a good marketer. I can make things look really great.
Yeah.
And then people will be like, well, why don't you have this feature? And I'm like, well, and they'll be like, oh, you know, Partyful has this feature. And I'm like, yeah, you know what else they have? $20 million. 20 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll build that feature. $20 million as well. You know, like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, struggling with the fact that like we've had this kind of outsized success, but we like, you know, it's like a Flintstone car. It's like we're just barely building it, barely making it. But yeah, pre-seed round is now confident to be closed, and it wasn't confident to be closed. Like I wasn't.
Let's talk about let's talk about how you gave up. Because we have, for everybody, we have an Olivine leadership WhatsApp group, and
let me find it.
A few weeks ago, Rae was like, "It's over. It's done.
I'm doomed.
Yeah, this is it. We're not moving forward. River's dead." And it was, and then within what, 2 days less, you're like, something's happening.
May 28th. Me, doesn't look like River will be able to raise money. Had a lot of investors get close to a yes, but we're totally worn out. I'm super bummed and starting to figure out what's next. We're talking about doing community strategy and engineering as a service to keep the team together. And everyone's like, no, you're not done. You can't give up. And I'm like, guys,
don't quit before the meeting. Actually, I think I posted that week a LinkedIn post that had you in mind, saying like, people are working really hard. Don't quit before the miracle. And I even mentioned like working really hard, trying to raise money. And then you were like, everything's over. Like, it's all over. And then it changed.
So like, I got this really painful no from like a beautiful investor. I mean, oh my God, it would have been a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
And I had like definitely put all my eggs in that basket. Like I was just emotionally attached to that being the outcome. And all the meetings had gone well. Like I just felt like vibes, you know? Mm-hmm. And then when they ultimately said no, they're like, okay, I'm so sorry. We really liked you, like the team, you know, but the revenue just wasn't there. And I was like, okay, for my own learning, like what would the revenue have needed to be for this to be an easy yes? And he said, $1 million ARR. And I was like, you know, we've been building for a year, but we didn't launch pricing until February 27th. And this meeting is like mid-May. So it's like February, March, April. So 4 months. So I'm like, oh, if I had $1 million ARR after 4 months of launching pricing, we would be having this conversation. I'd be on like some island rubbing cocoa butter on myself.
Like 100%. Yeah.
But you know, and some people would be like, oh, take the ton of investor money and just like rocket ship. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then this, you know, another investor that I was sure they hated us and thought we were freaking idiots, because I didn't think the meeting went that well. They came back like 3 days later with a yes. And I had like completely written them off because I was just like, you know, if this investor's not in, no one's in, you know?
Right, totally.
That's how it felt. So then that really like tipped the scales because, you know, we had some early investors who were like very committed and like they've been so supportive and we loved them, but it just like wasn't enough to like get us over the threshold. And the way fundraising works is it's like extremely slow and then extremely fast. So once you fill up some critical mass of your round, the whole thing comes together like instantly.
Why is that?
Because investors investors need like outside external validation.
Yeah.
To like some are like true believers and they just like believe you and oh my God, bless these people's hearts. Because they believe you and no one, like when there's no reason to believe. But then a lot of other people are like, I don't really know you. I don't have a like, you know, or they don't get it. Or or they're busy, or their fund is already allocated, or they're on vacation, or their wife had a baby. Like there's like a zillion reasons why it's a no and not you. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. It's just
Yeah,
like the
totally.
world. Yeah. So then we got this, like, basically once you have like 60 or 70% of your round like committed, then like the window closes and everyone's trying to like fit through the door. So that's where we're at literally right now. Like I'm taking all these last minute meetings and be like, I don't know if we have room for you.
And you're like, bitch. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just like so much learning. And this is what I keep coming back to is like, because, every once in a while throughout this journey, I'm just like sulking and I'm like, oh, like, you know how much money I would make if I was like the VP of product marketing somewhere?
Right.
And
Totally.
I wouldn't have to wake up with a stomach ache and my sweat wouldn't smell like onions. Like I just like everything would be better. But then I'm like, no, it wouldn't, because
you wouldn't be doing what you really need to do.
Because I'm in Aries and I just like have to create something original, and I'm a huge pain in the ass as an employee. Like no one wants it. Like I don't want it. They don't want it. Like I'm just unemployable.
Yeah.
I'm unemployable. So, I just like have to make it on my own somehow, because
totally.
Otherwise my soul will be like kind of crushed. And this is not to say that like I think badly of other people who have normal jobs. I kind of envy it. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to just be normal?
Yeah. It would be like way less stressful.
Yeah.
So we're once this pod is out, we will have raised money, and for 2 years, 2 years of runway where we can really experiment and work on like go to market and pricing and like find our wedge.
So if you had, and this might be hard, but if you had 3 tips, like true tips to give somebody who's looking to move in a similar direction, start their own thing, do the hard work, what would they be?
Yeah. So it's so cliche, but you got to find the thing only you can do, because it's like, there's so many Twitter guys. There's so many, there's so many times where I looked at like, I really look up to Dave Gerhardt. He started at Drift around the same time as at Intercom. We were both doing product marketing. We were both launching products. And like, he had the foresight to like post on LinkedIn and has like 100,000 followers and like started, a community, a paid community. Like he has a book, like all these things. And it's kind of like, could be maybe the thought of as like the counterfactual of like maybe what I should have done. But I just like didn't post that much on social and just didn't have the foresight to do that. And like now I know that I wouldn't have enjoyed that, and that wouldn't have been a good fit for me. But it's so easy to look at other people and like see their progress and be like, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah.
But you really just have to find the like the ikigai intersection of like the thing only you can do. And sometimes the things only you can do is just like, they seem totally random. Like I've always enjoyed hosting like baller parties. Like I would throw this huge Christmas party. Like I've always enjoyed hosting, making like elaborate dinner parties and like taking people on journeys and like experiences and making memories and stuff. And so, but I was just thought that was just like my personal life, and that was just something extra. But actually, that's like
totally
extremely important part of what we're building at River. And like being a connector for people. Like I've always loved, like some people collect ideas and I kind of like collect people. And I also love like plucking people out of like totally random industries and like getting them to work in tech. So it's just like
giving people those too. Like I think that you're really good at seeing somebody's skill set that might not seem relevant, but finding the relevancy and how it could be applied to something else. I think you're good.
Yeah, I just like when you see someone who's like a hustler or just like talented and raw talent, it's just maybe they've been pointing that in a different direction, but if you can re-point it in a new direction and get a lot out of it. So my first step is just like, you have to like, yes, you're looking at what other people do and you can be inspired, but you just really have to find the thing only you can personally do.
Yeah, something that's yours. And also I feel like that works too, because then you're in alignment with yourself. You're not like trying to create something that's not you.
You're in alignment with yourself and you have a unique value prop for the world.
Yeah.
So that's one. Another one is like, oh my God, there's so much rejection. It takes longer. It takes 10 times longer than you think. Like, even if you're like, let me come up with a conservative estimate, now multiply that by 5. Like, everything just takes longer. And so I always recommend to people, like, have a part-time gig or like
Mm,
do consulting in the area of the thing you want to start, like to
sure.
find, like, A, help find leads, but also just sustain yourself in the area of the work you're trying to do so that you can financially support yourself and not like wake up in a cold sweat, like wondering how you're going to pay people.
Totally. Yeah, I saw something recently that said having one revenue stream is too close to zero. And that really stuck with me too. Just like, yeah, you have to have
Yeah.
multiple for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And like, so making sure your finances are under control. And, sometimes people ask me, they're like, oh, how did you do this? They really like look up to it or something. I'm like, well, I have 2 incomes. My husband and I both have incomes. We have no children. We don't have any debt. We don't have like a sick parent to take care of. Like, you just have to acknowledge like the reality of your situation. So
Yeah.
basically optimizing, you're either lowering your burn or increasing your income so that you're like default alive for long.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other one is just like be like kind of build in public or just launch before you think you're ready. Like, you have to make a lot of noise. No one's listening. And
Mm-hmm.
if like if you say something you shouldn't, you can delete it. Like, it just takes way more touch points. I mean, we know this as product marketers. We
Yeah.
know this, but then
Doing
you
it
feel
scary. Doing it is actually more scary.
it's
Yeah.
so scary. There's been a few times where I've been like, oh, I don't want to tweet this because like, what if River fails and I look like an
Right.
idiot? Like, oh,
Totally.
what if I don't tweet this and then we fail because I didn't? So
Yeah.
you gotta just like build in public, put it out there, launch often, repeat yourself, like, because no one's listening. Like,
Right.
I've had people. I'm always surprised some people are following, and I didn't realize they were following.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other times where people, like investors, have been to multiple River events, and they didn't realize that I'm
Wow.
in the same. Like, they didn't realize it,
Yeah.
and so it's like you just have to keep like talking about what you're doing and put it out there because people aren't listening.
I love it. Is there anything else that you want to share in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, especially since the audience for this is mostly product marketers, I think I'm obviously biased. But I think product marketing, I've always said, is the most powerful position in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
The most cross-functional, you're closest to the strategy. You'll often be leading large groups to maintain product launches. You'll be working closely with executive leadership. And I think that way more marketers should become founders. Way more. And I'll tell you why. So many software engineers, it's just like the obvious path is that you'll
Right.
start a company. It is just like, the God-given right of software engineers to start companies. And I think for a long time, the tech stack, you had to be able to write code to be able to build anything. But the tech stack has completely changed. There's so many no-code tools.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at even really large enterprises, the number of employees is going down. Revenue per employee is going up. Everyone's doing more with less. I mean, the number of SQL queries we get ChatGPT to write for us, like, just there's so much out there that you can do that you actually don't have to be like that technical of a founder. And I'll actually try to pull up the tweet, but I have a tweet that's like, I'm not a technical co-founder, but I can get a website launched in a day. I can integrate with Stripe and I can start collecting payment. I can integrate with Zapier. I can get like my CRM to talk. Like, I can design assets in Canva and Figma. I can, there's so many things that you can do. And so, but so many founders who are software engineers, they don't know how to tell the world about what they're building. And so many of them are just like, they just swallow rocks because they don't realize that marketing and sales is actually a fucking important skill. And all the years they spent working at a startup, looking down at the sales team and not giving marketing the fuck time of day was such a mistake, because
Good.
you build it and no one gives a single no one cares about you, and they don't care. Oh, so many times I see an engineer being like, we spent this many hours on, I'm like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
What have you done for them? What is the value prop? How are you making their life better? Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
And so many engineers, they build something, they don't take it to market fast enough. They assume everyone wants it. No one does. They don't know how to talk to customers. They don't know how to give a talk. They have zero social media presence. They can't whip up a pitch deck in 30 minutes. Like they don't know how to do these things. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity for marketers to start companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the next way, like there will be, unicorns in 10 years from now who are started by marketers.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Sorry, I got a little fired up there. I've just been looked down upon so much.
Right.
Totally. I've been in tech for almost 15 years, been going to tech meetups, and I've been like a booth babe at PyCon. Yeah, then they don't take you seriously. Like even recently, like when I lived in Miami, people would be like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I have a marketing agency. And they'd be like, and they just like move on, which is fine. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. Ryan, Jonah, and I did Miami Hack Week, which is a week-long hackathon. This is a long hackathon. Most hackathons are like 48 hours or 36 hours. Week-long thing, took the whole week off, just did this hackathon. And I did like a full-scale marketing. I went full throttle marketer. I made us a logo with Madalena's help. I got us a little mini website. I did a daily podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Social daily podcast. I had a gorgeous pitch deck. I ordered pink t-shirts and I brought them to the screen printer and I had them dropped off like literally 45 minutes before demo day. I did these like posters for our demo launch. I made like videos, and we won Miami Hack Week, first place. There were 80 projects. It was 500 people, 80 projects. We won first place, and we won best use of OpenAI. And both Ryan and Jonah, obviously they built a working product, and the prototype was brilliant and it worked, and it was using like the latest LLM tech and RAG and like very technical stuff. But they're like, oh, we won because like we actually could tell the world what we actually made, because some other people made like some chat thing with satellites, but like no one understood what it was. There wasn't like a story. You couldn't get excited about it. You didn't understand it. And so that was just kind of another proof point that like, oh, more marketers should go to hackathons. I was the only marketer with like 500 people. No one else was a marketer there. But, the two people who actually built the product were like, oh, yeah, we won because you were there to help tell the story. For sure. Make sure people understood it. So, yeah, my presidential campaign slogan is more marketers should start companies.
Well, I'm inspired and I love your tips. They definitely are things that I need to hear, which we've talked about a lot. So it's always very helpful. And yeah, this was so fun. I'm so glad that we got to talk about your experience as of late. Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say, since we were supposed to talk about the cookbook, like actually read it. Like this is the playbook. It's like everything that's in there or in the founder, like the playbooks that we have. It's like literally I follow all the same templates for River.
Yeah, totally.
What's my job to be done? Who are my personas? What's my sales deck? Like all this stuff, some of the other kind of product marketing resources out there in the world, they're like, they have hundreds of templates. And I'm like, no, these are the 12.
Right.
12. You don't need anything else. I'm like literally running the entire go-to-market strategy of River on like the Olivine playbook. This is not market, so I definitely recommend like people reading it, using the tools, putting them to work, iterating on them.
Awesome. And anything, I know that you're immersed in River, but anything that you're looking to in the future, like anything else?
I mean, getting a paycheck will be really nice. Been doing a lot of Latin dancing.
I love it.
You need to come up and visit.
Yes. I'm like, all I do is think about salsa. It's actually like, it's like a lot. Like I do is think about it. I'm dancing so much. It's taken over my life.
Okay. Well, you got to come up for Labor Day weekend because I'm having a party.
I love it.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, just everybody like get out there, like work hard and just make something original. Jesus Christ, the world needs more original stuff.
This is super fun. It's so good to see you. I'm excited to see what you create, how things unfold.
Likewise.
And yeah, thank you for being on PMM Perspectives.
Yes, I can't wait. Okay. If you listen to this when we post it in the comments, tell me what you're building.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome, Rae. Okay.
Okay.
I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.